So we were just saying, what other signs did I have about Rooty-Tooty? Um, so anyhow, where your tears drain into your nose, she had a blockage going on, and then I took her to, I think it was an ophthalmologist or I don't know if it was an eye surgeon. It wasn't just an optometrist, but I think it was an ophthalmologist. And they had told me, bring her back after a while if it hasn't corrected itself. We're going to take this metal thing and stick it in there and open it up. And I thought, oh, I hope you're right that that's the problem, first of all. So it still was backed up and gooey, all right? And it's like, I don't think my kid keeps getting an eye infection. I think, this drainage issue is happening. But something was causing it, though. It wasn't just that it was blocked. Something was going on, and I felt in the environment that, like, say, allergies or a cold. Something was making it get that way in the first place. So I took her back to the ophthalmologist, and he wasn't in, but his aide or something like that was there. And he was going to do this procedure, even though my appointment was with the other guy who had a lot more experience. And so first, and I was there with my mom, and they said, we're going to put these eye drops in her eyes. It's some kind of topical anesthesia, so it doesn't hurt so much. And then we're going to stick this metal thing in here, in this little teeny tiny dot that you can't even see on the screen.
It's a good thing I don't remember this.
Yeah, oh my gosh. She was about 9 months old, if I'm guessing correct, if I remember correctly. She certainly wasn't of walking age yet. They had an instrument, but it wasn't for babies. He said it was bigger than the size that they should use, so I'm apprehensive. I'm like, why would we stick this metal thing in her little, in her skin, in her gland, that's bigger? Like, that doesn't make any sense. That means you're going to have to force it in there. And so I'm having second thoughts already, and then my mom and I are both holding her, and then his hand is shaking. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, you know what? That's okay. We'll just, I'll take her home. I'm sure it's going to open on its own, and it'll be fine. Mm-hmm. I did not see the need to force some metal object that was too big in your little eye drain gland that I'll have to look at the name later. This was not necessary. And with somebody, and you could tell, he didn't want to do it. I'm like, never let someone do a procedure on you that they don't feel comfortable doing, because you're just asking for trouble. All right, let me pause this. Okay, so I said, see you later, alligator. And, so when I would take my other daughter to school and sign her in at the office, there was this lady who was a mom of another elementary age child, and she noticed Abigail's mucus buildup in her eye, and she had a theory on what was going on. I don't remember if that was before or after this whole ophthalmologist incident, but she was willing to see her. She thought she could treat her for it. She was a type of chiropractor. And chiropractors are not just people that work on your spine. They can work on all kinds of alignment issues and anything having to do with joints. And you do have joints in your face. They're just not hinges, They stay there. But when you're a baby, all your joints in your face and other parts of your body are still soft and movable so that you can be born. Similar to what we talked about earlier with the legs being turned in to make it easier to be born. The bridge of your nose, if it is still soft, like the end of your nose is cartilage. When you're a baby, this part is cartilage too. and I told her that I didn't have enough money to pay her, and so she just I don't know if she used a little bit of my insurance money at the time, but I just paid her a small fee, and she tested her for some sensitivities. She thought that it was milk allergy, which she is sensitive to, and she said that it was these plates right here, these structures, these bone structures that were still soft, were just not in alignment, and she was going to adjust that. And that sounds kind of scary, because it's your baby, and you're gonna adjust her face. Like, what's gonna happen? Especially when her face looks normal, you know. But it was the lightest of touch, just a little bit of touch on her face, and that was it. And she recommended me changing the formula. I'm not going to get into that. I will say that it was nasty. So anyhow.
Didn't you say you don't blame babies for not liking it?
Yeah. This particular, because the cow milk formula was giving her mucus. The soy formula was going to... It's not that it has estrogen in it. It's that your body receives it like estrogen. She didn't need that. So we used this other formula. I don't remember what it was called or what it was made out of. But think of think of canned corn and bleach. Put that together, and that's what it smelled like. But I suspect it. But she had this milk. What was going on is, I guess if you're allergic to milk, you'll get hives and some other symptoms. And she didn't have that. What I found was, when she was much older, she rolled around in some grass playing around, and she looked like she had been cut all over her body. I was like, oh my gosh, it's just grass. Well, she has grass allergy, so it made sense. If a cow eats grass and you drink cow milk and you have a grass allergy, that's why her eyes were constantly running, and like her lower eyelids always seemed to like be inflamed, and they weren't tightly cupping her eyeballs like this. They were kind of, or I guess it'd be down like that. It was like that, and I could always see the pinks of her lower eyelid. They weren't bright red, but there was definitely something going on. So anyhow, this chiropractor, just by doing a light adjustment of pressure on her face, now that duct was draining properly, and by changing her formula, she was no longer having all this mucus. I did nurse her initially, 5 months, but something was going on. I don't know, she wasn't latching properly or something, and it was hurting like crazy. So I stopped for a month. I would pump. And so she was having some breast milk in a bottle, but I was having a hard time pumping, so there wasn't a lot, and it spilled, and they say don't cry over spilt milk. But man, when it's your breast milk, they call that liquid gold for a reason, okay? And then I was supplementing with formula, and I was noticing these problems. And then I tried to nurse her again, and I think she maybe did it like once. So I was like, all right, we're done with this. Let's see here. So, to recap, things we noticed. She had the intern legs that weren't straightening out at the right time. The birthmarks, which we still don't really have well, these are the reasons why I was taking her to see the geneticist. The allergies, the birthmarks, attention deficit disorder, social awkwardness, interned legs, the mucusy eye, like allergies going on, but I didn't know exactly what else she was allergic to. The head, being hypermobile, being kind of lacking muscle tone, so, and the pain, the generalized pain, and not knowing what it's from. So I take her to the geneticist, and she asked me, are you Jewish? And I was like, what does that have to do with anything? And at the time, I thought the answer was no. It turns out that simultaneously I had done a DNA test. Later I got back the results, and guess what? You can be Jewish genetically. It's not just, it's an ethno-religion. You can be a non-religious Jew, for example. It's part of your ancestry. It is there is the nation of Israel. It turns out I am Ashkenazi Jewish and Sephardic. Ashkenazi is referencing Jews from Russia and maybe Germany in the area that connects that part of Europe. All right. And I knew that my natural paternal grandfather, I don't know if he was born in Russia, but I know his family is Russian. And EDS, it turns out, is prevalent in Ashkenazi people. Before we go that far, so I asked the geneticist if she doesn't have NF1, what is going on? At least tell me what's causing the pain. And she said she's hypermobile. And go ahead and show them what the test that she did on you was. Right? And that, I cannot do that. This is what normal people can do. This is what hypermobile people can do. Here, move this there. See how the thumb can touch her forearm. And then what was it? Wasn't there the pinky test? Ow! I can't go that far. She can do more than a 90-degree angle. But you cannot. Another test for hypermobility is if you is if you can stand up. I forget if your legs are together or if they can be in a V. But basically, you can bend at the waist and touch your palms to the floor flat, and we cannot do that. What's ironic is if I sit like in a V position, I can reach my feet. As a middle-aged woman who doesn't exercise regularly, in some stretch positions, I am probably more flexible than others of the same background, female, middle-aged, and not stretching all the time, not a gymnast or whatever. But even as a kid who always did well in PE, the sit and reach was always difficult for me. And it's difficult for her. We get really tight in our lower back and the back of our knees. Everything basically, would you even say your calves? When you do the sit and reach, where do you feel the tightness? From your ankles up to your neck, basically?
Not.
Where do you feel the tightness?
Mainly through here.
So the hamstring, knee pit, calf area. Excuse me. Which always surprised, I remember my PE teacher going, go for it, expecting that because I always tried hard in PE. I was never the fastest, the strongest, but I always put forth great effort and was pretty...
I would think
I was either average or above average, but not the best at anything. But they were really surprised that I didn't do well at the sit and reach. I just made it. I could touch the line, but that's it. And it hurt to go beyond that. And you had the same experience.
It hurt to even get into the line.
Yeah, you couldn't reach the line, right? Okay. So,
I could, but it hurt a lot.
So the geneticist said she has a mild form of hypermobility, and she showed me a book. She didn't give me the book. So I eventually went and bought the book, and I looked it up online, and I was very confused because I came across EDS, and I came across joint hypermobility syndrome. I think the only thing I could do for you was give you anti-inflammatory pain reliever initially, or try braces, wrapping her with ace bandages, maybe soaking in the tub or something.
And my ankles would hurt too.
Yeah. I think the first, she recommended physical therapy. Said that you had poor muscle tone, but that something to watch out for joint hypermobility was not to try too fast and too hard to get muscle. Like she needed to develop her muscles and her, especially her core, but that you're more likely to injure yourself too. So I was like, oh, okay. So how do you use? It's like trying to get in shape in slow motion, because you don't really know what someone's limit is until you break it. So you started seeing a physical therapist. We started wrapping your ankles. We tried KT tape. And then at some point, because of the confusion, I wanted some clarification because of the book that I was reading. It was Ehlers-Danlos and joint hypermobility, and I don't remember why else. There was a reason why I needed clarification, but I don't remember right now. Maybe because I wanted to communicate with her PE teacher. And I think I wanted to know what, like, joint hypermobility syndrome seems to indicate that there's only a problem with your joints. That doesn't explain any of the other problems. Whereas with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is a connective tissue disorder, and there's different types. And it was giving me you can end up having all kinds of issues when you have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. So I emailed her doctor and she clarified, yes, it was joint hypermobility syndrome caused by Ehlers-Danlos. That type, it has a name and the name keeps changing. They've called it EDS type 3 because, like I said, there's many types. They've called it, so EDS would be capitalized and the different types of EDS would be indicated by a lowercase letter in the front. So like if you have classic EDS, it would be lowercase c, capital EDS. KEDS or SEDS, depending how you want to pronounce it. If you have vascular EDS, it would be VEDS. And
mine is HEDS.
HEDS, hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome.